Have you ever seen a living creature that looked already dead? Not because it had stopped breathing, but everything on its body, its eyes, mouth, limbs, was buried, strangled, and rotting right on its own flesh. A being that once ran, once breathed, once lived, now reduced to a filthy, motionless mass, reeking and decaying by the roadside, forgotten in plain sight. We saw it, and we couldn't walk away. It wasn't some remote location. That was a big road, one that vehicles and pedestrians passed every day, between broken bricks, bits of trash, and a crack in a neglected wall. A creature lay wedged in a narrow space, motionless, silent. It took a moment for our eyes to recognize what it was. At first, we only noticed a small, strange shape wedged tightly between heavy cement blocks, barely visible beneath layers of filth, dirt, and sand. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. From a distance, it could have been just another piece of debris, discarded and forgotten like everything else around it. But as we stepped closer, we caught it. A weak, irregular breath. That's when we realized it was alive. It was a dog, or rather, what remained of one after days, maybe weeks, of suffering in silence. The dog's entire body was covered in severely matted fur. The coat was thick, filthy, and tangled to the point that it formed a solid layer stuck to the ground, resembling a hardened, dirt-caked surface. Clumps of fur were packed with dried feces, twigs, and soil, forming stiff, crusted masses that pulled its limbs inward and restricted movement. The discharge from its eyes and nose had dried and hardened, causing the fur around its face to fuse together. Its legs and tail were not visible. The body appeared as one unrecognizable, compact mass. We stood in disbelief. No one knew how long it had been there. Days, weeks' rain had hardened the mess. Insects had begun to gather around exposed areas of skin where the matted fur had lifted slightly, revealing open sores. As we watched closely, one paw made a faint, involuntary movement. It was minimal, but enough to confirm the dog was still alive. We began by clearing the surrounding area, removing debris to make space for the rescue. Because the dog's fur was fused to the concrete by dried waste, it took 3 people to carefully lift and detach the body from the surface. We worked gradually to avoid tearing the skin. Once freed, we laid a soft, clean cloth on the ground beside the wall, then carefully transferred the dog onto it. The body was stiff. It didn't resist. No growl, no cry. It simply lay there, eyes sealed, legs curled unnaturally. We decided to perform emergency care immediately on site. Its condition was too critical to move far without risk. We started with the fur, using scissors and small grooming clippers. We slowly removed the thick mats layer by layer. As soon as we cut into the first layer, a strong foul odor was released, a mix of rot, feces, and infected discharge. Underneath, the skin was inflamed, red, and damaged. Some areas were open wounds, others covered with dried scabs, and some parts broken open into wounds teeming with infection. The fur had grown inward in places, puncturing its skin. Parasites, fleas, ticks, and even small maggots scattered as we cut deeper into the coat. In one hind leg, the skin was swollen to twice its size. The fur entangled so deeply we had to cut in layers. Each snip risked tearing the delicate skin underneath, but the filth had to come off. While one person continued cutting, another began flushing the wounds with antiseptic solution. While one person continued cutting, another began flushing the wounds with antiseptic solution. We flushed open wounds with saline, gently removed necrotic tissue, and packed open sores with antiseptic-soaked gauze. The legs were checked for circulation. One was nearly cold. We applied warming pads beneath the body. In the brief moment when its eye cracked open slightly, we cleaned away hardened pus and crust. The eyeball underneath had a cloudy film, indicating possible damage or infection. As we cleared more of the matted fur, we uncovered dozens of bite marks, scars, and old burns, the result of prolonged neglect and exposure. But the dog remained completely still. It didn't flinch, didn't move, It was unclear whether it was too weak, too numb, or both. Almost an hour passed on that roadside. We wrapped its body in clean towels to stabilize it for transport. The team carried the dog carefully, with one person supporting the head and chest and another holding the back and hips. Transport was done immediately. The dog was placed in the vehicle, supported by towels on all sides to minimize movement. We rushed it to the nearest veterinary clinic. The vet team had been alerted and was waiting. Initial checks confirmed what we suspected: severe dehydration, hypothermia, dangerously low blood pressure. Blood work showed systemic infection, anemia, and organ stress. There was inflammation in every joint, signs of malnutrition-related bone weakness, and fungal skin infection across more than 70% of its body. Its heart rate was irregular, oxygen saturation low. They began IV fluids immediately, added antibiotics, and administered pain relief. Blood glucose was dangerously low, so a sugar drip was added. Eyes were flushed and treated. Open wounds were cleaned again under mild sedation. The clumps of fur we hadn't managed to remove were carefully shaved off, revealing more lacerations, one of which required stitches. The dog remained silent throughout, but it was alive. And now, it had a fighting chance. After nearly 3 hours, the vet gave a diagnosis. If no complications arise in the next 48 hours, it might pull through. We brought the dog back to the shelter that night. A clean, warm kennel had been prepared. The temperature was monitored. Soft bedding, soft food, a constant supply of fresh water. Day by day, it began to return. We extended its treatment plan. Anti-inflammatory medications continued, and wound dressing was refreshed twice a day. The dog was placed under a heat lamp to keep its core temperature stable. It took several days before it could stand, and even then, only with support. We built a custom sling from soft straps and fabric so it could begin to retrain its legs. Appetite returned slowly. First just licks of liquid food from a spoon, then softened kibble soaked in broth. Each meal was a tiny victory. Hydration improved, color returned to its gums. New fur began growing around the scabbed-over wounds. Weeks passed, with physical therapy. The dog took its first real steps, wobbly, awkward, but standing. We clapped and cried. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was recovery. Eventually, the dog was able to stand and eat on its own. It could drink water from a bowl, wag its tail, and even take cautious steps outside the kennel onto soft grass. The healing wasn't fast, but it was happening. It would be a long road to recovery, months of care, ongoing monitoring. But what mattered was that it had been rescued, because what we saw that day wasn't just a dog. It was a life that had been pushed to the edge and nearly erased by indifference, neglect, and time. But also, a life that chose to hold on, and in doing so, reminded us why we keep rescuing. If you're still here, thank you. Please share this story, comment, subscribe. Every small action helps, and somewhere out there, another life like this is waiting for someone who won't look away. Every rescue isn't just about saving one dog, it's about creating ripples. One act of compassion leads to another. Every time we choose to help, we restore more than a life, we restore hope. Let this story be a reminder, even the most broken lives can be healed if someone just cares enough to stop, to help, and to believe they matter.